Welcome, everyone. I'm streaming from the Gold Coast in Australia, and today I'm going to talk about how God speaks to entrepreneurs. So this is video 1 of 10, and it's about the language of heaven, foundations for kingdom builders from my own lens and experiences. Training as my clinical training is clinical supervision and a counsellor. So that's really through the lens of that. So let's begin by exploring the biblical basis for heavenly languages and how God speaks through symbols, dreams, and utterances. Did you know that God's living word calms our nervous system? So from under the age of 5, I began having reoccurring dreams, visions, and words. This frightened me at first, but I wanted to talk about this, and it really is about focusing on 3 different reoccurring dreams, visions, and sensations from my own childhood. And we really want to understand, firstly, why do kingdom entrepreneurs need to be fluent in the Spirit's voice to build a business aligned with heaven's design? So from my own personal experience, those images or reoccurring dreams and utterances, they all changed when I became able to communicate that or understand that in a different way. So at first, when it frightened me, it changed. And then I was able to apply what I understood as words of wisdom, words of knowledge, and words of prophecy that aligned and explained those images to me. So as I matured, I was able to apply these dreams, visions, and God's voice to myself and work with people experiencing overwhelm and shutdown, which is my definition of trauma. And Dr. Amy Arpajon is the person who talks about this, and she talks about the biology of trauma. And she's written a book about it. It's due to release this year. So shout out to Dr. Amy Arpajon. And when we're experiencing overwhelm and shutdown, I'm able to talk about that with my counselling clients and my supervisees and other supervisors, actually. So let's take a look at the specifics of this. So I'm going to just go ahead and share something to the screen. And this will be the first image that we're talking about. So when this is happening for people, or when this happened to me, I used to have this reoccurring experience, actually, and it was the the tongue would get stuck to the roof of my mouth, and it was a sensation more than a vision or reoccurring dream, but it was a reoccurring sensation. And so when that happened, this is what I call the hard landing. So I was only young, like I was under the age of 5 when I started getting this reoccurring sensation. It used to terrify me or upset me quite a bit because I didn't understand what it meant. But it then changed later on in life, and what happened was I did have lots of experiences of overwhelm and shutdown when I was younger. So I actually was revived in the back of a car on the way to a hospital when I was only 6 months old. So that was my first experience of death and dying. And I don't have language for that. And so I think what I understand now is that sensation of my tongue being stuck to the roof of my mouth actually was my loss of language. It happened again when I died when I was 20 in childbirth, and my voice was the first thing that I lost. So there's direct correlation to this sensation. And I believe it was like protection and a warning to me, even though it kind of terrified me at the time of experiencing that. I think the direct correlation is, that I was going to understand this as my voice, my language, and interpreting. So, what I mean by that is we all have images or sensations or different things that happen in life. And the thing that we want to kind of take away from that is the ability to communicate it and having a voice and having language and having interpretation. And that's really important as a kingdom entrepreneur, because there's certain ways God tries to communicate to us if we're willing to hear and listen to it. But sometimes we miss it because we don't slow down enough, or we don't interact with it in a way that produces that understanding, that knowledge, that wisdom, and that prophetic, or the future becoming present. So the next images that I had interacted with, it was a spinning disc. So I want to just show you an image that kind of captures this for us. And again, this was a reoccurring dream that I used to have. And so what it meant at the time was this spinning disc, there would be people or voices I could hear. And the voices were saying, come on, get onto the disc, like get onto this spinning disc. And the more they prompted me and asked me to get on it, the more I would be like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. And if I didn't get on it, it just stayed the same speed. But if I did get on it, it sped up. So it became super, super fast, like a terrifying ride. But I actually like roller coasters. I like rides like that. But the funny thing is, I used to be terrified of this. And back then, I think it caused me to feel stress and overwhelm and shut down and anxiety and depression. So all those symptoms would be there for me when I saw this reoccurring image or had this reoccurring dream. Again, I was super young. I was like 5, but it really struck me and it kept coming forward. Like I kept looking at this image and thinking, what is this? And people would always be calling me onto it. And then I was like, oh, sometimes I would get on it, like I said, and it would speed up, and sometimes I would stay off it. So, it just depended on the day, what I chose to do and how it changed it for me. So this image, I want to let you know, changed, and I suddenly saw this like in my 30s, end of my 30s, maybe 40. This image actually changed to a highway of light. So I was actually in a church service, and it was my local congregation. And suddenly this disc image of light would appear in my mind's eye. And I didn't have to close my eyes to see it, although it did help me to close my eyes. When I closed my eyes, I was just, I don't know, part of that service, and maybe, the worship team were worshiping or something at the time. But anyway, this disc of light appeared, and I knew immediately what that meant. And I then saw it change to this highway of light. And so I was like on that highway of light and going faster than the speed of light and sound. So I was going extremely fast, but I had a complete peace, and it was something that had really changed and shifted for me. And so that represents like how I am able to support others as they get or move from their anxiety, depression-like symptoms, overwhelm and shutdown, and I move them over into this space where they can have clarity. There's no more confusion, there's no more stress, there's peace and there's clarity, and they're able to be on this to get a speedy healing. And yeah, it gets accelerated and can happen in nanosecond timing. And so yeah, I kind of, when I see these images, like I know immediately the shift and the change of what that looks like. Why is that important? Again, it's about really having clarity. Okay, if I'm given an image or a reoccurring vision or nightmare or whatever it is, there's always a message that can be drawn from and for that, which I really, I really love that. So the final image, the third and final image, is threads. And so with the threads, and I just again want to share an image with you. The threads were all messy and tangled, and there was no way of unraveling it. And then those threads became a tapestry. So they were ordered and just in that patchwork kind of quilt looking, tapestry image. And then that tapestry got pulled really tight to become a canvas. And what this all meant was like the messiness of life and how we're so constrained and all over the place could then become an ordered and really incredibly ordered and colorful tapestry. The threads really needed to be pulled one by one to create that tapestry. And so the funny thing is, with the threads, the more you pull on it, the tighter the knots become. And so there's a really interesting approach that you would need with the thread to be able to separate each thread out from the mess and the knottiness and bring it into the tapestry. So why is that important? God is a God of order. So he always talks about chaos being brought into order. And so I just want to encourage you and let you know that that is a really significant thing to understand as a kingdom entrepreneur, because sometimes we look at our businesses and we go, this is a total mess. How do I get some order here from this chaos? And so several times I've looked at what I'm doing on the daily and just asking God, how do we do this? And how do I partner with him to bring the chaos into order? And this is the chaos of our lives, and I'm alongside other people who have chaos. So I'm often helping them move the chaos into the order, which is the tapestry. And then the beautiful thing now, as I'm in my jubilee, I'm 51. So now I notice that that tapestry gets pulled really tight and it's now a canvas, and there's painted images on the canvas. And I can kind of really see God showing me, look, this is the picture now. From all the chaos, I'm bringing you through all the way to a place where I'm painting with you on the canvas. And I really love that, because again, the chaos and the messy threads really represent, the overwhelm and the shutdown. And when we're overwhelmed and shut down or anxious, we can kind of go between the two of those things. But God comes along and brings it into order like the tapestry, and then moves us into a place where he can pull us really tightly together, and it becomes the canvas for us to be able to have the painting. And so if you could kind of relate to this and apply it to what the work is that you're doing as a kingdom entrepreneur, I see that as progression of the timeline of our businesses often. So we feel like everything's a mess in the beginning, and then as we go along, we understand how to pull each thread out and make it a tapestry, and then we can move it to what is called the canvas. But it's really God's work. So yeah, God's the one who orchestrates that. God's the one really that knows how to do that the best. And what I've learned is to really just have an ear to hear and eyes to see the incredible things that the Lord does with these images. So I want to kind of let you know too that there's a link to each of these images, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in my next live. But the images are also representative of the three major prophets. And so the three major prophets, I go into a little bit more detail later, but I want to also just offer you what's called the prophetic business blueprint. And with that, what you'll get inside is 5 daily scribing prompts to receive business revelation, a dream interpretation checklist for entrepreneurs, biblical symbols, numbers and colors, and decoding those things as a guide, questions to discern and understand better the divine timing and partnerships that God has for us, and a prophetic declaration sheet to pray over your business. So the declarations is just a 1-page suggestion of prayers for your business. And so that kind of concludes part 1, or video 1, I should say, about the language of heaven and the foundations for kingdom builders. And I hope you have enjoyed exploring the biblical basis for heavenly languages and how God speaks through symbols, dreams, and utterances, and learning why kingdom entrepreneurs must become fluent in the Spirit's voice to build their businesses aligned with heaven's design. So next time, I'm going to kind of reveal to you a bit more about Jeremiah, Isaiah, or Isaiah, I should say, and Ezekiel. They are like the 3 major prophets that I'll like explain how that relates to those 3 images in our next video. So thank you for joining me. It's been amazing to be here with you today. And if you've got any questions, let me know, and please comment below and I can get back to you there. So oceans deep, my faith will stand, and I will call upon your name and keep my eyes upon the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours and you are mine. Oh,
oceans deep, my faith will stand, and I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace, for I am yours and you are mine. You are mine. You are mine, and I am yours. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me.
Before we move on, I want to prepare you for what comes next. In part 2, we shift from hearing to writing. What happens when revelation doesn't just move through your voice, but through your hand? I'm going to share the origin story behind my first experience of writing what I heard in the Spirit, a childhood dream I didn't understand at the time, and how that silence eventually became script. We'll explore what it means to write your heavenly language, not symbol copying, not imitation, but flow. What responsibility comes with capturing divine communication in written form, and what might happen if you asked to do the same. Part 2 is called Scribing Prophetic Blueprints, Writing What You Hear. Tap the next video and discover what happens when revelation moves from sound to symbol.
Could ever wonder, and my faith will be made stronger.